revised accordingly by December 2022. This is critical because it forms one of the recurring audit queries that lowers the PAP overall rate of implementation of audit recommendation, which the PAP Secretariat has limited powers to influence. Later on, we'll come to the issues of the canteen, concerns with the canteen, but even there, take note that ultimately the infrastructure of the canteen, for instance, there's no sink. It's only the host government that can do those structural adjustments. Item 2.2, inability to claim added value tax from the host country. I'll just read the first two sentences. The PAP has been unable to recover funds from the government of the host country for the value added tax, which amounts to 4,990,364 rands. In US dollars, that's $355,039 as of September 2022. This amount constitutes the accumulation of VAT since 2014 at a refund rate of about 12.5%. The following steps have been taken since the Committee of CAPA in August 2022. What have we done about it? Item 1, the chairperson of PAP Committee on Audit and Public Accounts met with the South African Revenue Service team to resolve the prevailing challenge regarding VAT refunds. 2, following the meeting, an officer was delegated by the South African Revenue Service Commissioner to resolve the outstanding PAP VAT claims. The PAP was asked to appoint a representative with South African Revenue Service to add Pan-African Parliament to the e-filing and activate tax types. So PAP needed to evoke the e-filing and communicate with the Revenue Authority. 3, however, in registering the appointed representative, PAP discovered that the registration depended on having a registered taxpayer with a tax number, but no staff in PAP Finance as a tax number in South Africa. So only a South African working at PAP was going to be able to log in because it required the national ID, which non-South African employees of PAP have. 4, the challenge has been communicated to the South African Revenue Service through the Office of Internal Auditor. The risk, item 2.2.1, the PAP risks part of this receivable not being recovered. Recommendation 2.2.2.1, management should continue engaging with the South Africa Revenue Service to ensure that the VAT is recovered before the end of 2022 financial year. 2, contact between the PAP and South Africa Revenue Service should be the finance unit going forward. It was the auditors following up this matter, and we thought it had nothing to do with the Office of Audit. This was an issue for the finance unit of PAP. Item 3, recommendation, South Africa Revenue Service should enable the registration of a PAP representative with a passport number or any form of identification available at PAP and not dictate the nationality of the PAP representative to serve as a focal point. It does not have to be a South African. It should be able to be anyone to claim back the VAT on behalf of PAP. So those processes, the Revenue Authority needs to help us. Item 2.3, non-implementation of organization audit approved by Plenary. I'll just read the first paragraph in the interest of time. Concerned about the persistent operational weaknesses observed in the PAP administration, the Plenary adopted the recommendation of CAPA to undertake an organization audit of the institution during its sitting in October 2019. The audit is aimed at assessing the adequacy of the current organization structure of the PAP to continue to effectively provide the expected administrative support to enable the PAP to fulfill its mandate now in the medium term to long term, In addition, recommendation to streamline tasks and decision-making processes that would lead to improved efficiency will be generated and an appropriate structure will be developed. The risks, 2.3.1, persistence of internal control weaknesses, planning deficiencies and implementation weaknesses observed, and which formed a few of the bases for undertaking the audit. 2, existence of gaps within the organization structure of PAP that may propel inefficiency and inability of the PAP to deliver on its mandate. We recommend 2.3.2, resource mobilization unit should source funds for PAP to implement the organization audit by 2023. Item 3, service-related matters. I'll just read the first sentence. 3.1a, inadequate staffing at PAP. The committee observed many vacant positions in PAP due to retirement and resignation of staff with no confirmation of recruitment dates for these positions. There's too many departments in PAP where there's only one man, and if that one man fell ill, the department also closes, and the vacancies have remained like that. I go to B, absence of succession plan. I'll just read the first sentence. Additionally, the committee noted the absence of a contingency and succession plan if staff takes ill or proceeds on leave, especially in units with one officer. Unit of internal auditor is a one-man show, so when he's not there, the department closes. And most departments, there's no succession plan, and whether it's deliberate or not, we observe that. And consequently, we note the risks and recommendations. 3.1.2, the risks. 1, few members of staff to implement key deliverables of the Parliament. 2, PAP lacks adequate expertise in critical fields. 3, some staff cannot proceed on leave and risk being fatigued, developing mental health issues, and unable to deliver optimally on their responsibility. We therefore recommend under item 3.1.3.1, the PAP Bureau should fast-track the recruitment of competent staff into all the vacant positions with PAP. But even as we recommend, note that there is a challenge. The current AU guidelines are that all application for staff for PAP should be done to the AU through a portal, and then it's the AU that scrutinizes all the applications, and then they reduce them and then forward to our PAP Bureau when they have already eliminated. So we wouldn't know whether they have even eliminated good CVs. It's happening now. I must mention that the advertised role of the office of the clerk, over 350 applications were sent to the AU portal, and the AU reduced that to 60, and they've reduced that to 22 and sent to our PAP Bureau. What has happened to the other 300? What proof do we have that they were all bad? How do we know maybe they are not disadvantaging one applicant and advantaging one? Or maybe there are applicants who are well qualified for that role, they have eliminated them also and just left the ones, narrow it. So that's a big concern that we need our Bureau to take up this with the AU. We need our Bureau to have the autonomy and the powers to carry on their duty, because if anything goes wrong with staff, it's the Bureau that's answerable. Before I even forget the point, even on matters to do with staff, at the moment, we have the PAP Bureau who represents us OMPs, we elected them there. Then we have the Secretariat headed by the clerk, the Office of Clerk. As is, and historically, the PAP
Order. I think you can see where I'm looking. I'm looking at you. Okay, proceed.
Thank you, sir. So just to underscore, historically, the PAP Secretariat, which is supposed to be helping our PAP Bureau, who we elected per caucus, and the president, they or engage any financial related activity without referring to our bureau. Our bureau now operates after the thought. They operate like CAPA. So they will see a consultant was hired to produce a report of 5 pages and paid $250,000, and it's already been paid. And the secretariat, the clerk, office of clerk and staff, as is, that is been the tradition here. So the bureau is only informed, they can't do anything about it. So they are supposed to drive our parliament, but at the moment, they are only engaged after the vehicle has driven and parked and run out of fuel, then they are called and explain to why the vehicle cannot move forward. So it's an issue our bureau should take up to ensure that, and also in the rules committee, I think it should be made clear that PAP should start and end with the PAP Bureau. The PAP Secretariat is the helper and not decision maker of matters to do with PAP. This to do with recruitment and this to do with all financial matters. There should be internal vouchers where the PAP president with his assistants should approve any financial implication project before it's even procured. So if we want to buy, let's say a bus, there's need to buy a bus. The PAP president and his vice should sign internal records to approve that. Then the clerk should go and pay and buy that bus. At the moment, the clerk will just pay and then explain later. So that when there's audit queries, the records will show that it was approved by the president and his vice. Another recommendation is that the PAP Bureau should fast-track the recruitment of competent staff into all the vacant positions within PAP. Several vacant positions within PAP, and that's why even our budget has reduced, because salaries are not being paid, but they are budgeted for. Item 2, PAP Secretariat should develop and implement a reasonable recruitment plan to fill all possible positions before the first quarter 2023. At the moment, if somebody is retiring, first they retire, and then we advertise, and the whole process takes 3 months. So we should start advertising 2 months before somebody retires, so that there's even a proper handover process. At the moment, there's not even handover. By the time we are recruiting 6 months later for a vacant position, the incumbent has already gone. Item 3, recommendation, PAP leave plan should be implemented as agreed with staff. Item 3.2, poor quality of catering. In the interest of time, there were many concerns with the current catering. 1, poor quality of food. 2, differential pricing for the same dish, depends in the mood of the cashier on the price. It's not even put on the wall. 3, inability to cater for the preference of various regions. 4, failure to accommodate specific dietary requirement. If you have dietary issues there, you're not adequately catered for. And we know regions, the different caucuses prefer different traditional food, but there's no variety there. Item 5, inability to provide for specific religious needs. I think our colleagues, the Muslim, are not well catered for. There are no pork is not served in that kitchen, but should be properly indicated where is halal and cater for all their expectations. Item 5, improper setup for Continental canteen befitting for parliamentarians. There's been concern that our home cafeterias are well stocked, hotel standards, and then we come here, we're downgraded to lower standards. There's that concern. Item 7, impractical saving arrangement which lead to long queues and delays. It's disheartening to see honorable members queuing up. 8, absence of basic amenities within the canteens. I don't think there's a sink there. But again, I mentioned earlier on, so the structural changes to the canteen, that's for the host government to do, and that's why it's very important that the agreement is renewed. Implication 3.2.1, restaurant that does not cater for the needs of the PAP members. The restaurant does not cater for all our needs, and most members end up going to eat at their hotels or not eat at all. 2, billing method used serves as an avenue for overbilling parliamentarians. Most MPs, they find the billing there most expensive compared to average prices out there. 3, MPs risk developing health issues. Recommendation 1, let me just summarize. The main recommendation, I'll summarize it into 1. I think to up the game of the canteen, the recommendation we are making is that we should create competition, and the PAP Bureau should help us to engage another service provider. Find another premises, maybe outside here as you go outside the plenary on the right. Another company should be engaged to provide the services so that there's competition. Maybe they can concentrate on Central and Eastern Caucasus type of traditional food, and maybe the new ones could be taught to concentrate on Northern and Southern type of food. But competition is what we think will encourage the current service providers to up their game. Item 4 is on financial matters. I'll skip all that in the interest of time and go to page 17, 16. Look at page 18, I'll go to point 4.2. Support by the development partners not captured in the financial statement. It's about page 18. Item 4.2, support by the development partners not captured in the financial statement. I'll just read the first sentence. The committee observed that some programs and activities of committees are funded by partners other than the European Commission, the main partner for the PAP, but the cost of these were not captured in the PAP financial statement. The risk is that non-compliance with the AU budgeting process, which requires all funds received and spent to be passed through the budgeting and approval process. 2, non-recognition of the value of benefits received from the development partners. The PAP could be exposing itself to allegation of receiving unverifiable benefits. Recommendation 4.2.2, 1, all mobilized funds by various units, whether in cash or kind, should be regularly transmitted to the budget officer for inclusion in the monthly budget implementation report. 2, PAP should embark on an intensive resource mobilization drive to garner the necessary support from partners to implement PAP activities. 3, the registrative business and conferring division should prepare a budget of the contribution in kind to be received in 2023 for supplementary budget request to include in the 2023 budget for approval by the police organs. Item 4.3, fraudulent operations and cash transactions carried out without supporting document. I'll just read the first sentence. The committee noted the findings of the Board of External Auditors of a transaction of $16,871.32 in the petty cash account without any justifiable payments, without any justification, and payment of US dollars, $11,031 without supporting documents. The misappropriation of funds was due to the fact that there was no separation of duty between posting transaction in the cash ledger and the custodian cash. The cashier had the direct posting right and would capture the fictitious transaction in the ledger. Management has put control measures that separate the duty between posting of cash transaction in the ledger by the accounts assistant and receiving cash by the cashier. Implication and risks, item 4.3.1, financial loss to PAP-related fraud. Our recommendation, item 4.3.2.1, the Bureau, we recommend that the Bureau should set up a disciplinary board in line with the AU staff regulation and rules to advise on appropriate disciplinary measures. One unique item we noted, one cashier who misappropriated the 16,000 admitted and they recover the money from the salary. So we showed concern that they had to reprimand that cashier to the disciplinary committee. You don't defraud an institution and then you are forgiven because you'll be refunding from your salary. So we have recommended that they should be subjected to a disciplinary committee, which will be set up by the PAP Bureau as per guidelines from the AU. Item 2, the Office of Internal Audit should speed up the investigation on the extent of fraud perpetrated and submit its report by 15 November 2022. A fraud is detected and it's ignored. So we want the report so that concerned staff can be subjected to a disciplinary committee and, if found guilty, reprimanded and penalized. Item 4, inability to confirm balances directly from vendors. I'll just read the first line. Under international standards auditing ISA 505, the external auditor confirmed accounts payable balances, selecting a sample of 13 vendors. So what happens, the likes of Southern Sun, Monte Cassino, Wharton, Congress Rentals, when our auditors ask them to confirm the balances, they just don't respond. The risk, item 4.1, failure to address all the vendors covered by sample does not allow the auditor to ensure the reality of the accounting balances of the supplier debt. 2, the difference between balances recorded by PAP and that confirmed by the vendor may impact the reality of the actual balances. Recommendation, auditors should correspond directly with vendors through PAP management. Item 3, PAP should adjust the difference noted between the balances held in accounts and those communicated by vendors in their responses. Conclusion, item 5. I'll read the paragraph. CAPA is committed to providing the expected support to the PAP in its oversight function by applying its members' professional knowledge and experience to resolve, improve, and facilitate the governance, risk control challenges and processes within PAP. To succeed, we have agreed to employ the strategy of 1, sustain open interaction with staff in examining and discussing the audit reports presented to us. 2, fostering interpersonal relationship among staff and between staff and the MPs. 3, bringing matters of urgent priority to the attention of the PAP Bureau to ensure timely intervention. And the PAP Bureau has no powers, I wish to note also, as I hinted earlier on, the PAP Bureau has no powers over finances that come to PAP or spent on many PAP activities. The staff do as they want. The offices of staff, today they can just decide amongst themselves to even pay $1 million for whatever, genuine or not. They don't need, as is, has been the practice, they don't need to consult the president who we elected a few months ago and his vice, which is a big anomaly. If ever there is a fraud of $1 million, it's not the staff that will embarrass this parliament. It's the president and his vice and our caucus heads and ourselves, MPs. So that's a big financial anomaly. 2, PAP receives funding for activities and the Bureau is not aware about them. So if the EU sent us $1 million, the staff will receive, and they have no obligation to tell our president. Is not aware. The recently Women's Conference a lot of money was spent in excess of 100,000. And even events, the last huge dinner, I think I stand to be corrected, but for explanatory purposes, let's assume $100,000 was spent on that event. The president and his vice president appeared at that event without knowing that they were the ones paying for that event. So the staff made the decision, procured who to provide the services and paid. So we are just up there with our president and everything is just happening behind us. Committee activities, nothing goes to them. So we shall follow up on these issues together with the committees of finance so that we make proper recommendation around improved financial management. May I say again, this is not about individuals, it's not about the acting clerk, it's just the way PAP has been operating. But I think it's time we should make a difference and change all the rules and give all the powers to the president and his vice. Dr. Gayo is in charge of finance. He too gets surprised on expenses that have already been made, on contracts that have already been awarded, on staff that have been hired. So our bureau is only as good as we empower them. In my language, we have a saying, "Infumu ichindiko mwine." In my language, we have a saying, "Ubukudwanko komasako." A chicken to look big, it has to have a lot of feathers. For our president to look big, we have to support them. And then, Infumu ichindika obwine means the chief is only as important as the people he prevails over respect the chief. It's a coincidence that our president is actually the actual chief. But our president and the vice president will only be able to function. They will only be respected out there if it starts from here. PAP itself, as members and staff, we need to empower them. They need to be in control of everything that is happening. So it's us to insist that it's not staff, it's the president we elected and the vice should control our funds. They should control all the procurement. Even staff, they should have the first and last say. They should even take that power from AU. Whatever they have to do, AU should receive the application of the clerk, if there were 300, and give to the PAP Bureau. And they shortlist, not they shortlist on our behalf, and give us 20. That means, who knows, for lack of a better term, what control do we have? Who is auditing them? This CAPA, ideally, if I had the powers, I would go and audit that process, how they reduced from 300 to 20. Who did they leave out? So those are the challenges, honorable members. And I thank you for your attention, and thank you very much.
Sorry, thank you, Honorable Mao Sampa. Can we give him another clap? I think it's fair that we open debate on the audit separate from the budget first. So we can't combine the two. So I open for debate. A number have registered here. Yeah, quite a huge interest, I believe. And the first is Honorable Pemima Jodina. Take the floor, Honorable Pemima Jodina, on the debate on the CAPA report.
Thank you very much, Honorable President, the Vice President, as well as honorable members from this august House. President, let me take the opportunity to welcome a well-crafted, detailed, factual, honest report from the chair of CAPA and the committee. I felt that I must take the floor to acknowledge what has been raised in the report with regard to the host country agreement that seem not to be serviced properly. I stand here, Chair, without any fear of contradiction, that I've just spoken to the Minister of International Relations that she must correct what is written here by acting in accordance to what is expected of host country. I want to confirm now here, Honorable President and to members of this august house, that South Africa has just approved the 14 million that is going to assist in upgrading of ICT. That information is going to be communicated formally to your office, Honorable President. And what is said to have expired in 2009 is not a country's host agreement per se, but it is technical annexures. And even with that, we've just made a follow-up, because we must also play our role as a host country when there are certain challenges. And we want to commit, Honorable President, that we are going to assist at all levels to ensure that all these are attended to. Hence, I'm standing to welcome the report and to welcome the openness and transparency of this report. And we are going to ensure that whatever is due to the Pan-African Parliament as per the host agreement and technical annexures is attended to. I therefore welcome this report on behalf of my also region as well as the hosting country, because we have an obligation. We cannot renegade on the host agreements that have been signed. We also want to ensure that the President and the Vice President, when you engage with AUC, at least you have an information of what are the developments in terms of correcting what is outstanding. So I make that submission, Honorable President of PAP. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable. Maybe I should have also said a few words after Honorable Sampa. On recruitment, would want to hear your views when you debate on recruitment. You are aware there are 22, I think almost 23 positions vacant. We asked the AU to advertise, that's the procedure. They advertise on our behalf. But I want to emphasize that the rules of the AU on recruitment are clear, that the organ, each organ does its own recruitment. That's what's in the rules, AU rules. We are an organ, so we do our own recruitment. But the AU came up with some other additional policy, which are not the rules, where they say to advertise, you send adverts to them, they have a portal, whatever system they have, they advertise. After advertising, they will download, and then the organ proceeds. Those are applications for on the 24th of October. But not for all the 22, they only advertised 12. They say the other will come later because the system is congested. That's what they say. So the other 12 are still to be advertised, or the other 11. We wanted to move very quickly for clerk and deputy clerk, because we need to recommend to the plenary for a clerk to be finally confirmed that we have accepted them in the deputy clerk. Plenary has a role. The Bureau recommends to the plenary 3 names for clerk, and then the plenary debates and accepts 1 out of the 3, the same for the deputy clerk. So we wanted to proceed fast and take advantage of this sitting so that we can bring the 3 names. But the process from the AU advertising took more than 2 months. And then when you advertise, you wait for another 30 days. Anyway, they have closed now. We wanted to shortlist last week. Then they said for those that should participate in the interviews, they have to be trained on a CBI, competency-based interview system. So we had to go through that process. About 15 were trained. We even included the chairpersons of regional caucuses deliberately, because we wanted this thing to be transparent and that each regional caucus should participate where possible in the processes of recruitment, but where possible, not at all stages. But at least they are trained so they can be invited to participate anytime. So that we did. Now we say we are ready. Give us the applicants. Give us the applications, CVs. We were going to sit on Friday, but and I was busy here, so I asked Honorable Gayo to lead the meeting on shortlisting. For those who say, he then came later in this hall during the women's conference, said we have a problem. For deputy clerk, 356 CVs were received. The AU has only given PAP 22 CVs out of 356. Where are the others? They have screened on that side. Then we had a disagreement. If the organ recruits, okay, you have advertised on our behalf, but surely to remove more than 300 CVs and give us the 22 and say, go ahead and interview. Some of the candidates will say, if they see that we have employed as clerk or deputy clerk, Honorable Lamila, they will say, but how could this person be invited to an interview who has a diploma in this? I have a whole master's, more than so experience. No, there's corruption at PAP. Such possibilities can arise. Some may start writing letters and say, no. That's just corruption. Because some of us who are left out are more qualified, more experienced, more whatever. So we said, please give us all the CVs. If you have reservations yourselves on some applicants, you can indicate, say, okay, fine, on this one we found whatever you want. You can make your comments, but don't disqualify them at that level, because we may be receiving, as one minister told me some year back, he was saying, Chief, I'm being blamed for destroying the economy as a means of finance, but it's like someone, a doctor who is given a dead baby. It's already dead. Say, look, doctor, can you resuscitate this baby? When this is already a dead baby. So don't have to be given a dead case as such. So, but when you debate, we're asking you, if you say no problem, take the 22, proceed, it's okay. Want to take a cue from plenary also. Do we accept the 22 out of 300, or we should insist that we get all the CVs? So thank you. Proceed to debate, and the next on the floor is Honorable Domai Gatpan Kulan.
Thank you, Right Honorable President. I tend to arise, I was entertained by that presentation from Kappa. I realize now that this house is having those competent and well-qualified elements of members. We are in the right track. I'm now optimistic. In any institution, procurement and contracts are the center of the corruption in that particular institution, being PAP, being AU, being whatever commission. Those are the center of corruption. So if you want to find out what is happening in that particular institution in regard to corruption, you just look into these two elements. I thought this CAPA report should come together with the performance report by the President in the very, very, very first opening of the session, because they have to be harmonized. Because this CAPA is like an internal audit of this institution, because you cannot touch AU because it's untouchable, that AU. We are just hanging around here. So they are internal audit. That means they should harmonize our documents with our president and the bureau. The staffing, those staff, they cannot respect the president, because they came from AU, from that powerful organ. How come they can respect the president? They will do whatever they want to do, because they work with impunity, because they come from AU. Resources mobilization. I was suggesting since 2018 that let us have $100 on each and every traveler who is an African, on each and every ticket. Only $100. $100, this is a source of mobilizing the resources to this institution. Okay, if AU want to divide it with us, fine. But let us accept it. It is only $100 per ticket, per traveler within Africa. Let me stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable. And I'll call upon Honorable Felix Ogong, Uganda.
Mr. President and honorable members of Parliament, I rise to contribute mainly on the issue of the host country agreement. South Africa signed an agreement with AU in 2004, and the agreement was supposed to run from 2005 to 2009. And since 2009, when the agreement expired, it has not been renewed to date. This is a serious matter, because as we sit here, we are sitting here illegally, because we are not well embraced with the agreement and the commitment of the government of South Africa. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, Mr. President, this is clear sign that there is non-commitment on the part of the government of South Africa. And therefore, as members of the Pan-African Parliament, we need to come out clearly on this matter, because we cannot continue to sit here illegally. We cannot continue to be denied facilities that were promised by the government of South Africa. In that regard, Mr. President, I want to appeal to honorable members, if it pleases them, that we come with a timeline for the government of South Africa to commit herself. And if that cannot be achieved, then members of the Pan-African Parliament through AU, we can decide to relocate to another country that is willing to host and provide all the facilities to the Pan-African Parliament. Mr. President, this is about the unity of Africa. This is about the commitment of Africa. And we actually have a lot of confidence in the government of South Africa. And if they cannot do this simple matter, cannot honor their agreement since 1909, This is now coming to 12, 13 years. This is a very serious matter that we cannot just hide under the table. We must clearly state it, and the government of South Africa should give us clear response. And once they actually are still holding on, I think AU should make a position on this matter. And therefore I want to appeal that the timeline must be given to the government of South Africa. It should not be business as usual. As Africa, we have done it for so long. I think this time action speaks louder than words. We are not going to be talking all the time. We have appealed to government of South Africa to renew the agreement, but they have refused, denied to do so. They have always been telling us, we are going to do it, we are going to promise after promise. Lack of commitment, which personally I object to it. The second point is the drop in the budget of the Pan-African Parliament. Sharp drop from $22 million to only $11 million. This is serious because much of it goes to salaries, and activities of Pan-African Parliament is never put into action. As provided for in our rules, in our rules of procedure and in the protocol, we have a lot of functions to perform. We are supposed to make the people of Africa know about Pan-African Parliament. We are supposed to do a lot of things for the good and the benefit of the peoples of Africa. But once we're denied resources, therefore it means we cannot perform our functions. Because resources is part of activities that we are supposed to do. And I therefore would like to appeal to the President that as you promise that this is going to be a new parliament, this is going to be a parliament that is reinvigorated, this is a parliament that is going to take action. I want to appeal to you that that delayed conference, that delayed retreat should happen between Pan-African Parliament and PRC. And when you report to the General Assembly, I want, Mr. President, that your voice must be clear, that once that the budget is not provided, then Pan-African activities are affected. And all the President must commit that Parliament, Pan-African Parliament, should get requisite resources to perform its function. I want to move to the point of recruitment. Mr. President, this is a clear matter of law. The protocol states clearly that the President and the Bureau shall recruit the clerk, deputy clerk, and other staff as required. The function has already been delegated to the Pan-African Parliament. And this parliament, this function cannot be withdrawn by just mere commission. Because commission is it is subordinate to the parliament to the Pan-African Parliament. How can a subordinate body now direct a supreme body? That cannot happen. I therefore want to appeal to you that recruitment is an activity that is provided in the law, in the protocol, and therefore it is our legal responsibility to recruit and deploy or to disappoint. We can either disappoint, appoint, and also we can also disappoint our staff. And our mandate is to monitor them. But if they are being recruited from another place, we cannot monitor them. They will not owe allegiance to this parliament. And therefore, Mr. President, I want to appeal to you that let us stand firm on the issue of recruitment. The issue of recruitment has been a point of corruption, not only here, but at the African Union. How can 300 people apply and you only transfer only 40-something names? 20 names out of 300. This is a matter of corruption. What were the criteria that were provided? Mr. President, I object. Let's stand firm and recruit our own staff, where we have total control and the allegiance and loyalty to our bureau. Thank you very much.
Rule 4 functions of the Parliament. draft, examine and adopt its budget, its rules of procedure, elect its members of the Bureau, employ and manage its staff. It's in the rules. And there is also a document by the AU itself, which they call, rules. No, the AU rules. They call them staff rules and blah, blah, blah. But in those rules, they also say the organ employs its staff. Very consistent with our rules. Anyway, I move to Honorable John Bideri.
Thank you, Right Honorable President, for giving me the opportunity to talk on this report that was presented by the Honorable President of CAPA. I wish to make my comment on the service-related matters, in particular the issue to do with staffing at the Pan-African Parliament. When I look at this report, and in particular looking at the risks and the implications, it worries me a lot because looking at the focus and the vision that our new leadership has, it does not seem to me that the organizational structure that are not filled now, and even the quality of the staff that we have now, might not be able to match that vision. So it requires that we look at this implication and the risks involved with the seriousness it deserves. And in my view, a highly performing organization is largely linked to the capacity and the motivation of its staff. So if the issue of capacity is being questioned here, perhaps I've not heard about the motivation part of it, then it means that the aspirations we have as an institution, we might not be able to realize them unless we have enough staff and we have competent staff to deliver on the mandate of the Pan-African Parliament. I'm raising this issue because I had an opportunity to talk to one of the staff that works closely with me, and I realized that the committee clerks apparently serve more than 2 committees, and occasionally they're also serving a caucus, a regional caucus. So when you have a lot of expectation from that kind of staff that works for, I wouldn't call them, shall I call them departments if you like, more than one, then it becomes a big challenge. So I'm of the view that we need to perhaps look at our organizational structure as it is now and see, and we try to check whether it matches with the demands that and the expectations of our institution. And if need be, we need to look at that organizational structure and perhaps look at the availability of funds and perhaps create more positions to be able to meet some of the critical needs that we have. Now, when I look at the issue to do with the issue of critical staff that are able to provide expertise in critical fields, when I listened to the speech by the AU chairperson, one of the issues that was raised was the ability of the Pan-African Parliament to meet its mandate with the expectations that the African people have. And we cannot realize this unless, obviously, we have very competent staff that are able to understand the root, the challenges that the continent has in terms of carrying out research that really identifies critical challenges that the continent has, and be able to advise the parliamentarians on what actions to take, whether political or technical, that can only be realized if we have very competent staff that are able to assess the challenges that our continent has. So if really this report talks about lack of adequate expertise in critical fields, then that might be a challenge that we need to address very urgently. So, Right Honorable President, I would like to end my submission by saying that while we are trying to fill up these positions, I would also suggest that we also do an evaluation of the existing staff to see whether the positions they are in matches with their capacity or with their ability to deliver on the mandate of this Pan-African Parliament. Not suggesting that even where perhaps we find certain gaps after the evaluation, we should also think about providing additional training so that such staff that lack certain capacities can be capacitated to deliver on the mandate. So I wish to conclude by saying that this report has really come at the right time, and I think it is very important that we take it very seriously and be able to resolve some of the challenges that we face as an institution, because what we need really is to be efficient and effective in providing services to the African people. If we can't do that, then obviously we'll be here to talk but not to act. Thank you, Right Honorable Chairperson. That is my submission.
Thank you. I call upon Honorable Muntaka Mubarak.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I just have some few issues I wanted to get clarification for. One of them is the chair of CAPA, Honorable Sampa, was talking about some $250,000 that was used to pay for some 5-page report. But going through his report, I haven't found it anywhere that stated in the CAPA report. This is a very serious allegation, and we need to be able to substantiate it. Because I chair the finance committee. When I heard this, I tried to look through the budget of the 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023. I haven't found any line for such an expenditure. So to hear the chair of the CAPA mentioning this amount, it will be very important that he gives some more details so that we can be able to deal with it properly. Secondly, Mr. President, on the issue of the host country agreement, I just want to plead with our colleagues. We need to be a bit diplomatic about this. And I know that especially where our colleagues have mentioned some of the effort that they are making, we need to trust and use our colleagues so that we use more diplomacy in trying to get this resolved. The reason why I'm saying this is because we've never been stopped from entering these premises. I've been here for about 13 years, and there was not a single time that we came and there were no police officers here, or there were no, issuance of cars or other things. And you could see that, yes, we may not have a written agreement, but the South African government is doing all it could to provide us a place, and we need to appreciate that and try to use diplomacy to rather get the other things that we are concerned over. The last I want to talk about is the recruitment issue, Mr. President. Mr. President, this is so critical. It is so critical, and because I have the privilege of chairing the Finance Committee, we see one of the major challenges that we are having is the execution rate. You got the opportunity to speak to it when you were presenting your report yourself, Mr. President. And because of the vacancies that we have and the amount of money that has been allocated for their salaries, allowances, and what have you, once we do not spend, when you go for budget, they look at that and deliberately try to say that, look, when we gave you this, you couldn't exhaust it. So, Mr. President, I will want to plead with this House that we must not close this session without giving the Bureau the mandate to go ahead and recruit, and then when we come in March, they report. Because if they are going to wait for us to do this and then come in March, meaning there will be another 5-6 months lagging. So in 2022 budget, you will see a gap of non-execution in the staff emolument. And 2023, you will still see some, because even if they're able to get everything done and wait for March for approval, then January, February, March itself will also be a void. So I will want to plead that this House will must resolve to give them the mandate to go ahead and do the recruitment so that those officers can start before the end of the year. So that at least we will use that to close some of the void. And then in the next 12 or so that they said they didn't advertise, Mr. President, I want to suggest that you go ahead and advertise. Because if you've given the AU their due respect, even though the rules itself says that you will do your own recruitment, and you give them list, and they decide to advertise half and leave the other half, they are indirectly frustrating our institution. So we use that as a basis to say that, well, when we gave you, you couldn't do the advertising, so we've gone ahead to advertise and gone ahead to recruit. There will be justification, and this one, I'm sure, even if the devil is the one to chair, will say that you are fair because you gave them the opportunity and they lost the opportunity, and that's why you went ahead to do it. So please go ahead and let's not keep holding, because we are being affected heavily in our performance, because a lot of the things are not done by the parliamentarians, they are done by the staff. The few staff that are there are being overstretched, and I don't think it will be fair to continue to stretch the few when we have the opportunity to do the recruitment. So please, I will plead that at the end of, probably end of the report, we should just add as part of the resolution and approval that the Bureau should go ahead and conclude the report, the recruitment by the close of December, so that by next year, we'll have a clean sheet to start with the full complement of the staffing. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you. That proposal, I think when Honorable Sampa winds up, there is the proposal on the recruitment. Honorable Sampa, I think we'll take note of that proposal when we do the final recommendation. I now give the floor to Professor Matole Motsek.
Honorable Chairperson, I think all of us that are here, we are lawmakers in our own countries, and that status does not diminish when we come here. And therefore, although this parliament is not a legislative body, but the members hereof are lawmakers and should therefore understand the rules of the game. In any parliament, there is what we call the due process of law. The due process of law requires that you don't make judgment in any situation unless you have heard both sides. And the question that confronts us now on the question of the host country agreement is who are the two sides. The two sides are the AU Commission and the South African government. Now we have this report before us. This report clearly shows that there were some engagement with the AU Commission and the PR Committee, and that the decisions were not carried out at that level. And then the decision of the Executive Council was not implemented. But now, we are just an organ of the AU. And according to this report, our responsibility is only engagement for input. And therefore, if we are engaged for input, we are not a party thereof. So I think that let's observe the rule of the game, which says, hear both parties before you make a judgment. Now, we have not heard what the South African government today, as we speak, has done in the engagement with the AU. We don't know what the AU Commission has done. So with respect, I want to suggest that it's really premature for us to be suggesting that South Africa has failed and therefore there must be timelines, and we start talking about relocation of parliament. I don't think that that is fair to the honorable members that are sitting here, to South Africa and to the AU. We have elected a competent bureau under President Chief Charumbira. I think they are fully aware of the situation. Let's give them time to address these matters because the bureau will have to engage the South African government and the AU Commission. And therefore, I want to agree with Honorable Mutaraka that I think these are diplomatic relations and we should not deal with them emotionally in this House. That would be my submission, that there's no crisis. Maybe there was a crisis before, but now we have a competent leadership which was adequate to the task. There's nothing to fear. Let's leave this matter in their good hands. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. The interest to debate is quite huge. I can see a lot of people still outstanding or papers. Okay, let's go back to our 3-minute rule. Because in papers, interest keep registered. And now papers are still coming in and the list is getting longer and longer. Can we implement the 3-minute rule for debate? Yes. I don't know who does it. I understand it's somewhere that side. But I don't know who. So I'm just appealing just in the roof somewhere. Okay, and that person never even speaks to us. I hope they are listening. Please implement the 3-minute rule. Let's proceed now with the Honorable Miriam Chonya. She's not in the chamber. No. This is, no. Come up. Sorry. Wow, come. Sorry, I think these people gave me mixed up papers. Up. Honorable Gwasi Dams Kamani of Tanzania. So this okay.
Nashukuru sana Mheshimiwa Rais kwa kunipa nafasi ya kuweza kuzungumza na mimi.
Thank you, Mr. President, for giving me the floor to contribute to the CAPA report. I am a member. Honorable President, I would like to start by congratulating the committee and all the members for the good report which they have presented, which has touched all the aspects. Honorable President, this evening I would like to contribute on the 4th item, which is the overview of 2021 budget and its implementation. Honorable President, when we view the responsibilities and powers of the Pan-African Parliament as the AU organ and the expectations of our countries, we members of the Parliament in this Parliament, and the expectations of our people or African people for what they expect from us as their representative to what we can do. Honorable Chair, not impressed by what we've seen in the PAP budget. Honorable President, I believe that when AU was establishing PAP as the organ, it has its own objectives, and it is saddening to say that the objectives of establishing this, by starting up with a budget of $22 million, those objectives are no longer relevant. And today we are talking about $11,000 million. Our objectives are still there. The number of members and the committees are still there. So we expect, instead of reducing the budget could have been increased. If AU is our main stakeholder, we expected that we could have a dialogue between us and the AU, that to see that as there is inflation in the world, they need to increase our budget and not to reduce it. Honorable President, it's my expectation that for PAP to be an organ that can implement its powers according to the rules, for our presence here in South Africa to be justified. You can remember that we have left so many responsibilities in Africa to come here to implement the objectives of Africans. So we want the Pan-African Parliament to have responsibilities, and we believe in you that you have the powers. You in the Bureau with your vice presidents, you can implement your work effectively. Honorable President, it is saddening to say that there are things which are going on here, and with the budget, you and your Bureau, who are supposed to... Mic is off. Mic is off. Thank you so much. In conclusion, Honorable President, I would like to urge this Parliament to come up with the resolutions and recommendations that we should enact a dialogue between AU and the Pan-African Parliament so that we sit down and come up with the resolutions so that the financial powers should be returned to PAP. Thank you, Honorable.
Asante sana. Dialogue, yes. We have a retreat that is on the cards, and we believe once that takes place, some of these issues, if not all, will be well understood. I now call upon Honorable Azedine Abdulmajid of Algeria.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Thank you, the Right Honorable President. I had the honor to serve in the mandate, or rather in the Parliament of 2014-2017, where we were discussing the various programs of the Pan-African Parliament. I have the impression that time has stopped, because there are principles that are not taken into account, rules, the procedures, the issue of coherence in terms of who is responsible for what, and the issues of transparency. So I have the impression that we really are in the mire. So therefore, when you find yourself in a situation such as this, where there is confusion, it is important that you go back to coherence and responsibility. I do not quite understand why we don't grasp the fact that responsibility should be shared between the political elected part of the parliament and the management. So it's not a matter of personalities, I think, because I am wondering whether the management that we have, the vice presidents, the president, who are managing on behalf of the Pan-African Parliament, are they serving management, or is it the opposite? So the problem is to be found almost everywhere. It's universal. There are those who are elected officials, and if they're the ones that sign the documents, that sign on the dotted line, then they're the ones that should bear responsibility. If there's any problem, they're the ones that are going to be taken to court. So it is important that these responsibilities be clarified so that we know who is who. And the lines of responsibility are clearly demarcated, and I think it is the responsibility of each one of us. These are rules that need to be reinstated. Now, for South Africa, we need to congratulate and thank South Africa for everything that it has done and continues to do for the Pan-African Parliament. Thank you.
The floor now to Honorable Musana Eric of Uganda.
Thank you so much, Mr. President, for this opportunity. Mr. President, allow me to commend the committee members for the wonderful report compiled, but allow me to make specific comments related to number one on transparency. Your Excellency, you have quite often helped us to understand the independence of Pan-African Parliament. This is in regard to the guidance on recruitment of our staff here. If we cannot stand out to be clear on this, this Parliament is on a very big test of its independence. And I want to support, like other colleagues have said, we need to be very clear to have our own powers as Pan-African Parliament and let AU be only given the role of overseeing what we are doing, but not directing us, especially when it comes to recruitment of our staff, because we want to have our best and we want to be more independent. And the exercise must be transparent, because we are the eyes and ears of the entire African continent. Number two, Your Excellency, we are talking about value for money. The report has clearly given us how money should be spent, and then its value must be seen. We were actually getting concerned on how finances can be spent without your approval, without the exercise of the Bureau. The Bureau must be well aware and must sanction every payment. And I had only one comment, maybe the chair of CAPA will help us to explain this. The report so much went to other issues that I see are less of finance, are less of audit, like the issue of canteen, how food should be served, the diet. I don't see this more falling so much in CAPA. I think it would be left out to other areas. Thank you so much, Your Excellency.
Thank you, Honorable Musana. I give the floor to Honorable Mariam Dao Gabala, Côte d'Ivoire.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, the Right Honorable President. Let me start by saying thank you to the CAPA Committee for the wonderful job done, a very objective and detailed report, and I think it is proper that we thank them and congratulate them. But this report is actually concerning. It alarms me because we know that last week we spoke of the governance of our own countries, and the report appears to be alarming with regard to the state of the governing arrangements that we have at our institution. I think it is important, therefore, that we have a parliament that gives the entire and complete responsibility to the people that we have elected. By the same token, Mr. President, I think we have the powers because that has been bestowed upon us by the text that we have. And we ought to take that upon ourselves to ensure that these internal processes function properly. I don't know if we have a manual for financial management, but we don't have to wait for the African Union. This is something that the Pan-African Parliament could do, come up with an internal system that allows us to govern, manage our finances properly. Mr. President, with regard to the recruitment, could you please tell me where do we get the list of the people who are supposed to be recruited here? In that way, I think we can lend you support and renew our commitment to you, Mr. President. And I have a proposal to make, because for the new recruitment, the technical support personnel for committees should become a priority of priorities. And let me take you back to the proposal put forth by my colleagues, namely the fact that we get a report from the committees that gives us the powers to make us more effective. And the issue of restoration, I think what comes to mind is to try and establish what happened when parliamentarians were not here, but make sure that the working conditions are also improved. And I'd like to add my voice to the requirement that working conditions, whether it be the canteen or the health issues which were not dealt with by CAPA, be taken into account. Mr. President, sir, microphone please. I'm almost there. Well, now I think I'm speaking French mixed with English. So this report comes at the right time, so that we take upon ourselves the manner in which this Parliament is governed. Thank you.
Thank you. We now give the floor to Honorable Ashini Astini Toiki of Ethiopia.
Thank you, Mr. President, for allowing me to contribute on the report presented to us by the CAPA members. They have carefully prepared the report, and this I want to present my thanks to them first. And I want to say some things about the recruitment that was made in the report, that if this organization is functional, then it should, as it is written in the rules of procedure of the Parliament, that it manage its own staff and its own budget, and the staff must be recruited by the PAP, because we have the issues that we have to resolve also in the recruitment. The staff must look the face of Africa. It must include all the diversities, all the regions that we have. And if the recruitment is done by a third party, and how are we going to manage all of these things if they send it by doing it, the applicants are made by one region, and it will be difficult for us to manage it and make it in a good way. So it must, if there are things that they have maybe in the rule, the Bureau must continue to engage discussion with them to make sure that they give a solution very soon, so that it will not continue as it is. concerning the budget issue, especially in the organization. I think it is very good to be, our presidents must have a say on everything that is going on in the organization, because the budgeting issue, the finance issue are one of the big problems in different organizations that create suspicions. So if whatever is going on in the organization, then it must have a say from the heads of the organization, especially our president that swore here in behalf of this parliament. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I now give the floor to Honorable Mepatoriatile of Botswana.
Let me thank you, Mr. President, to give me the opportunity to contribute into this report of the CAPA. I have to thank the committee, Mr. President, for preparing this communicative report before this August House. But maybe we have to talk to this report, Mr. President. When we are talking about the value-added tax, it's a history in this parliament. Because as you remember, maybe we are in a 7th year talking about the same issue. Now I would like to request this CAPA to make sure that at least they have to make sure that we're going to manage to complete this issue, because it has been in this parliament for quite some time. One other thing, Mr. President, is the non-implementation of organizational audit approved by this plenary. This issue of the non-implementation, Mr. Speaker, or Mr. President, is coming back to this issue of the value-added tax, because it has been debated in this House, and we have came up with a resolution how the staff should go and try to complete this matter before with the government of South Africa or SARS. But it seems like it has been a very, very difficult, but I hope and I believe the current committee, they will make sure that they put our parliament in a better shape by concluding this matter. One other thing, Mr. Speaker, that Mr. President, I have to conclude upon is on the issue of recruitment. When we are talking about recruitment, Mr. Speaker, we have to be sincere to ourselves. Let's talk about the recruitment, saying we need to make sure that we fill all the posts. And we shouldn't look at, when we are talking about filling up this post, targeting a certain region. We have to be continental. But this, Mr. Speaker, has to be taken into cognizance with the temp employees who are serving in this parliament. Are the temp employees, are they coming from the continent, or they are coming from 2 regions, or 1 region, or 1 country? We have to ask ourselves those questions, so that when we are going for a full recruitment for permanent staff, we have those things have to be communicated, because we shouldn't repeat the same mistake that were occurred in the past. But lastly, Mr. Speaker, on the issue of the hosting country, about the PIP, Mr. Speaker, venue. I don't think it's a serious issue to myself, Mr. Speaker, because the person who's footing the bill for this building, it's not PIP, it's the South African government, and they're fully aware that they should, because we have been going through a lot of challenges of the COVID and extra. So I believe the South African government, they will come up with a clear understanding that they're going to give us the venue that we deserve. And at the same time, we know when we came here in the second session, we'll be still in this premises, because it's belong to us. The South African government is paying the bill, so there's no worry to me about it. But Mr. Speaker, if we can go back to AU. When the AU was established in Addis, The first year, Ethiopian government, they didn't build those premises. They built after years. But right now we say the headquarters of African Union is based in Addis Ababa under the fully occupation and the ownership of AU itself. Even here in South Africa, the PAP tomorrow, they're going to have their own premises that's going to belong to them and owned by themselves alone. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. I give the floor to Professor Matore Motsek.
Spoken, Honorable President.
Sorry, it's a repetition. Second bite. So, then that was the end. So we are done. Sorry, papers here are finished.
Honorable Speaker.
I don't see the papers here.
Honorable Speaker, I have submitted my name.
Sorry?
I have submitted my name and I'm not called.
I can't see you.
I'm here behind.
Okay. I'm receiving one now, but which is anatropia, theonist. Haraka, haraka.
Please try to be quick. Thank you so much, Mr. President. I'm sorry, I apologize that I went out, but I want to commend the good job done by the committee for the presentation. But I want to tell you that the strength and the reputation of the institution, it depends on their financial balances, how they prepare their financial accountability and their opinion. I would like the chair of the committee to tell me what is the opinion of PAP? Because at the end, the auditor comes with the opinion. And why are we complaining here? People have given their reasons why we are complaining. Because our leader, who is supposed to be chief of staff, who is the clerk, is not appointed by us. We don't elect or we don't appoint him. So automatically, those people who are his subordinates, it's not easy for us to account on them. So if we as PAP don't have financial statements which are good, we will be responsible because we will not be seeing what we are doing. And I think here it has been observed in our report that some financial statements, for instance, those which were given by other stakeholders, they are not accounted in our report. And also, even other workshops and seminars, they are not accounted for. So how our stakeholders will understand what we have spent? So we need to have a reputable institution. But another issue or challenge is failure to account for the balances from the those who are giving us services, but also even debts which came, we see some deficit. So we see that we don't have even sampling. So we have a challenge in transparency in financial balances. So how do we move from this? I would like to advise that we need to have a strength department of auditing. They need to have powers. What is the role of the auditors is to indicate all the indicators that there are likely misappropriation of funds. So if the auditor also decided to collude, it's automatically that we are going to have a financial transparency problem. I would like to also to add my voice to what other colleagues have said. If we have to have transparency in our budget, we need to have a clerk who is responsible and recruited by the parliament. I want to thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. The last seat I have is Honorable Suleiman of the Gambia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I would also like to join my colleagues to say big thanks
to the committee for the job done. Honorable Speaker, the document speaks volumes and it touches almost all the areas that concern us as a body to do justice to our continent. Honorable Speaker, the report highlights the weakness in the operation of PAP, ranging from administration, staffing, succession planning. I think these are issues that needs to be regulated if we want to operate as a house that has a vision to transform the continent. Honorable Speaker, the leadership. Once our leaders don't have voice in our administration, they don't know how things operate. That doesn't tell well about us as an institution or as a body trying to regulate issues in this continent. We also reflect back to PAP, where we started from, the journey. Now, if our leaders don't have say in how finances are run in our institutions, they just see themselves in the midst of programs. They don't know how they are organized, how they are budgeted, or how they are spent. That's a big issue. So that's why I said this report tells us a lot. There is a gap somewhere that needs to be filled. I believe that we are on a journey, and we can see the commitment in the face of every member present here, ranging from the first person to the last person. Honorable President, Mr. President, we also have seen the financial gaps in the report, inability to claim value-added tax from the host country at a time of, tune of, 4 million rand. Honorable Speaker, we all know that fund is an issue, finance is an issue. So we need to work hard to see to it that, we resolve these financial issues. The budget of PAP, Mr. President, needs to be a smart budget. The budget that must be realistic and achievable. So we must start talking to AU to be serious with the work of PAP. PAP cannot be functional without funds. We need funds, and we don't expect outsiders to be funding our operation. It means we will not make an independent decision. Honorable President, the issue about the host country, I think there is miscommunication somewhere along the line. But the report, shows that we need to improve. Either AU to be in consultation with the host country, but this issue needs to be fixed. We cannot silence over it. It's good that it's highlighted in the report so that your office, take a giant step to resolve it amicably. I thank everybody for your kind attention.
Honorable Janet Kabila.
Thank you, Honorable President. I sent my request earlier. Maybe there was just a mix-up of the documents. Honorable President, I would like to start with the first point on host country agreement. I know when we were presenting the work on the internal rules of procedure of PAP, our caucus had requested that with a two-third majority from the honorable members of parliament, we can move the seat of the Pan-African Parliament. We came back, we retracted from that because, first of all, one, we know that the host country is chosen by the assembly of the heads of state. Second, Honorable President, you remember the issue was raised here already by you. You raised the issue.
Order.
Yes, please.
Some phone ringing somewhere. I'll excuse him. Continue.
Thank you. As I was saying, the second reason, the issue on the seat of our Pan-African Parliament, you raised the issue when we had our guest of honor, who was representing His Excellency President Ramaphosa. I think you raised that issue, and I believe he hasn't come back to you. And then the third reason is that with additional explanations that Honorable Majordina, chairperson of the Southern African Caucus, has given her from her executives, the government, I propose that we give it time and we leave it to you, our bureau, with you, Honorable President, to get in touch with the South African government so that we may move forward on this matter. That's what I propose. On the issue of the non-implementation, that's 2.3 of organization audit and of the Pan-African Parliament, Honorable Vice President, I think you remember when you gave us the 13 questions on how we could better the performance of the Pan-African Parliament. I think one of the things that the Central African Caucus proposed was that we should have a monitoring and evaluation plan drawn up. And I believe, I don't know if it's CAPA or we'll get some experts to work on that, but I think we really need that. And this comes to the question whereby we have voted so many resolutions here and recommendations which we don't know. Can I see the last person, Honorable President? You allow me? Thank you. Since we've been here, maybe we can go back 3 or 5 years to see what are the resolutions or recommendations that we took in this August House that we haven't followed up on. And lastly, Honorable President, we are talking about the collaboration between the Secretariat and the Bureau or the Pan-African Parliament. I would like to refer the honorable members to Rule 17 on the functions of the Bureau, and that is Rule 17A. The Bureau will be or is responsible of the management and administration of the affairs and facilities of Parliament and its organ. B, responsible for the regulating the procedures relating to the financial, organizational, and administrative needs in accordance with the financial rules of the African Union in matters concerning members and the internal organization of the Parliament and its organ. And D, determine the establishment plan and structure of the Secretariat and lay down regulations for the staff, including their terms and conditions of serving. Honorable President, I think everything is clear in this document. We just need to apply it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable. I think we have exhausted the list. We can therefore ask Chair of CAPA to respond. Sorry. Omission. Honorable Dr. Gayo, Vice President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Honorable members. I don't take much time. As far as this recruitment is concerned, I think it's not about hiring staffs. Recruitment is about independence of Pan-African Parliament. It's about autonomy of Pan-African Parliament. Who will listen to us if AU will hire staffs and send to Pan-African Parliament? Nobody will listen to us. And also today, even with these current staffs, we have some problems. We have some challenges. Usually, we advise them, let Bureau interact with AU, not you staffs. You are accountable to us, not to AU. We are advising them. Today, this recruitment issue, is very serious. It should be handled by Pan-African Parliament, and also it's in our rule. Secondly, this host country agreement, I hope it's a matter of priority. South Africa is the largest economy of Africa. They can do this for Pan-African Parliament. And also, I believe, always South Africa played a very positive role in Africa, in Pan-Africanism. Even last week you saw what South Africa has done for Africa in peace agreement of Ethiopia and the rebels. I would like to ask you to give them a big hand. Really, they deserve it for that peace process. And they will do it. As a vice president in charge of finance, honorable members, you cannot believe. Who am I in that bureau? What am I doing in that bureau? A person who doesn't know about the finance of the Pan-African Parliament. Who doesn't have any report from finance? Any staff is not coming and consulting me. I would not like to condemn anybody. This is a bad experience which inherited from the past. I don't want to blame staffs who are working, who are rendering service today. Today I can realize that why AU was against Honorable Nkodo Roger, former president of Pan-African Parliament. He was too tough. He did a lot. He gave per diem to members, and he did a lot. But all staffs who were fired by him were reinstated because they are working for somebody else. Because we don't have power to keep our staffs, to hire and fire. We didn't have right. Can you imagine? $250,000 was spent for 14 pages of paper. 14 pages. You can produce that paper in a night. In a night. But we don't have money for members to pay allowance, to pay per diem. What pap is that? Honorable members, you should be very serious. I can be in bureau today, tomorrow somebody will take over, but also we should establish rules today for which we will be abided. There must be order. Staffs are staffs, leadership is leadership. What is going in pub? How come? Can you imagine hundreds of thousands of dollars? Any staff can sign without authorization of the president, without the authorization of vice president in charge of finance? We are nothing. We are nobody. Honorable members, it's a very, very serious problem. We need to pass resolutions. You should empower Pan-African Parliament. I can refer the rule which was read by Honorable Kabila, and also we need to refer to another rule which empower the staffs to do by their own. To do by their own on financial matter. Honorable members, there are some certain issues which we should handle very seriously and put some roadmap also to resolve all these problems and to move forward. I thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you, Honorable. Just to emphasize that in terms of the rules, a clerk and a deputy clerk is employed finally by plenary. The Bureau recommends, okay, interviews are held, and then the Bureau recommends to plenary for clerk and deputy clerk. and then the plenary endorses. It's not the AU who give us a clerk. It is the plenary on the recommendation of the Bureau. I also want to say the list of recruits, Honorable Dao, Cameroon, Cote d'Ivoire, asked the question, where do we get a list of the recruits? The list, of course, is first of all advertised by the AU, and finally that should come to us for shortlisting and interviews. So the AU advertises, and then it's on a portal, so on the AU website. Last time I think it was also moved to PAP website, and I think national parliaments were sent lists through clerks of national parliaments, and we had said each member should receive that list. It may not have been done, but we instruct staff to do things. We said each member, because we can communicate to each member. So we can communicate to each member, and even the regional caucus chairpersons. Let's give them those positions which have been advertised, so that regional caucus chairpersons can also share with their membership in their regions. We hope that will be done. Recommendations and resolutions, yes, by Thursday, we do these, we take them to our countries, we take them to other institutions, including our heads of state in February. That's why I was saying let's have very sharp recommendations. I think the CAPA report is over. Keep pursuing other issues. I know there are so many. There have been recommendations for investigations, and we take note of those, including the 250,000 that Honorable Dr. Guy was talking of, about how many pages report. Yeah, I think we need to change the culture in this institution. On the MP side, we are doing a lot. I think on the staff side, we also have to do a lot and make sure that it becomes a parliament a civilized parliament, characterized by good governance. So have you moved for adoption? Sorry? Did you move for adoption?
No, Mr. President, maybe I do it now.
Okay, proceed.
I'm being guided that I need to respond, Mr. President.
Oh, but sorry, respond and then adopt.
Okay. Honorable members, I'll be very quick, but allow me to thank the members of CAPA that are present, the rapporteur, Honorable Patrick, Honorable Bettine from Cote d'Ivoire, Honorable Mama Mahamat, Honorable Kamani and Honorable Techerif, and also to thank our support staff, the clerk of CAPA, Dr. Ndidi. The first response is to my caucus chairperson, Honorable Majordina. I think the issue of the host agreement, as she put it in perspective, and indeed I take note. I think even from members, it's clear that this agreement actually is in force. Otherwise, it would have been inconvenienced, and I don't think there's complaints with transport and the host. Everything is in place, and it's the annex that hasn't been renewed. So I think just for legal and audit requirements, the external auditor keep putting it in their report. I think I know she's the iron lady in our committee. of the Southern Caucasus, so I think it's in safe hands. We'll consider it that it will be assigned consequently. And other members have also said that diplomats should be employed. Honorable Kabila mentioned that the president also is good at diplomacy. So at that level, I think this item will be implemented. Honorable Domain from South Sudan, he was concerned with procurement and contract as the center of corruption. I could not agree more. We need to nip in the bud. That's why actually CAPA now, we're doing snap audit. And Honorable Kabila also mentioned the importance of monitoring and evaluating. If we just sit and wait after the effect, then we are just evaluating when money has already been lost. That's why we need to monitor. And as CAPA, we work in offices now to check quickly. Even the 250,000 it's been raised, it's not in the report because it has to be investigated by the auditor, and it has to be in a report. So it will be in my next report. For now, I was mentioning it as part of my conclusion that we've already detected. We cannot wait. We're mentioning and we're zeroing in to see what were the approvals, what happened, so that when we come here, it's official in a report, because there is a foundation of an official report done within PAP. Honorable Felix Okoto Ogong from Uganda, one item I pick up is we are sitting in Midrands illegally. There's a point there, but I think it's been dealt with. It will be implemented, so to speak, just to keep the records of PAP in place, so that external auditors don't keep picking up the issue that the annex has not been signed by the host government. In the interest of time, I move to Honorable Senate Bidera from Rwanda. One item raised worth noting is performance of the organization depends on motivated staff. It's very clear. In any organization, the staff need to be motivated, but when they perform, equally, the staff need to be reprimanded, the ones that are not performing. There has to be a distinction. But I think in PAP, there's no clear cut. If somebody does something wrong, they are just spoken to and it's okay. No punishment. Even, I was going to say the Bible, but I realize we shouldn't go to the Bible. But even in our culture and religion, any erring child that does something wrong, you have to reprimand them. But someone that does something good, you have to reward them. So we need to look at that, rewarding and reprimanding staff that are not doing well. And those that are doing well, we reward them. Honorable Muntaka, the 250,000 I've mentioned, I was just preempting what we have already detected to come in the next report. And he also says we should give the Bureau mandate to recruit before March. I think most members have raised that. The Bureau has and should have the mandate to recruit, even for the clerk. The clerk will report to the president and the Bureau, so he should have a say on what qualities he's looking for. They are established academic qualification, but then whoever is doing the work for him there, he has to have a big say. So most members echoed that our Bureau should have powers in recruitment. AU should oversee the process, but they should not be the last determinant of shortlisting. Other members have actually even asked the president and the Bureau to take it up with AU, that they need to have a say to put their foot down. Honorable Matole from South Africa, Motseke, I pick one item. Let's give the Bureau time to engage the South African government, the AU. He called the president master of chief diplomacy. And also he says that there's no crisis at PAP and leadership. We put a good leadership. And as I said, that saying in Bemba, Uganda, apparently our tribe sounds the same, so he understood. The president and the vice president will only be as important as we ourselves, we make them. If here at PAP we are not respecting them, we are allowing staff to bypass them, disrespect them, how will they be respected outside PAP? So it starts with PAP, making our own presidents and vice president important here and feared. Not feared, they are good people individually, but they should be able to hire, they should be able to fire, they should be able to approve contracts of spending of money. Anywhere, even in our countries, who makes the president, what makes the president president? It's their ability to hire and fire ministers. It's their ability to control the finance through the budget by the finance minister they appoint. But here, our people, our president, our speaker, our vice president, that bypasses them, eludes them. The staff eludes them using the AU. The other members even said staff should not use the AU and bypass the Bureau. That's something our Bureau should take up with the AU. We are autonomous, but we report to AU, but they shouldn't micromanage this institution and get involved in little details of shortlisting. I go to Honorable Kamani from Tanzania. One item, PAB should create a dialogue with AU, just agreeing with what I've said. And Honorable Zen from Algeria, we need to go back to who is responsible for what, elected leaders and management. All powers rest with it, which needs to be distinct. Who is the boss between PAB Bureau and the PAB Secretariat? It's very clear. The boss is the Bureau, PAB Bureau. The Secretariat, by definition, they are the secretaries to the Bureau. They operate based on what the Bureau is directing them. So that distinct power needs to be made clear, that office works at the behest of the PAB Bureau. Honorable Musana Eric from Uganda, one item, independence of PAB in recruitment of staff, as mentioned. He also echoed that. Honorable Gabara from Cote d'Ivoire, we need to give power to the Bureau. So all members are unanimous that the Bureau needs to be empowered. But also I'll mention that when I come to Dr. Gayo's comments. Honorable Toiketi from Ethiopia, recruitment staff must be recruited by PAB. He also agrees. Honorable Raji from Botswana, value-added tax, he says we should push. And again, we have our ANC Chief Whip, also the SADC Region Caucus Chair, Honorable Majodina. She's in here, and I think she'll do our own internal push. She was very helpful in the matter. And we're almost there. I spoke myself to the South African Revenue Commissioner in charge, overall general, and he was surprised. They are not refusing to pay us. It's PAB staff. They are not logging in to claim that money. That's what the problem is. There is all manner of excuse. No, the email is lost. Now it's no, only a South African can do, because it comes a part when you're logging in, it asks for your SA ID. And the conclusion has been made. When maybe it can be bypassed, those are operational issues. And we mentioned to them, stop sending emails, go to the South African Revenue Authority, sit with your peers. We cannot go back to the overall Commissioner General. He says he's happy to pay, the money is there, but claim it properly. So they should go and liaise with their peers at the Revenue Authority. The operational matters, I don't think this plenary should be involved. The staff should get it done. And we've given them a period of end of the year to get that money given back to PAB. I'm concluding. The MP, Honorable Member from Tanzania, said the clerk is not appointed by PAB, so there is no way that they can account to. I think we've agreed. The clerk should be appointed by the PAB Bureau, and the clerk should report the PAB Bureau. Honorable Gambia from Gambia says the document touches everything, talking about our PAB report. We need to regulate the issues highlighted. So I can only thank him. And Honorable Janet Kabila also echoed that the president should push for diplomacy to get it done. This is in reference to the host government agreement. But one important item she raised is on monitoring and evaluation plan, M&E. It doesn't seem to exist in PAB. So I agree with her. We need to ensure there's constant monitoring of issues and pick up. The issue of 250, that's part of monitoring. You pick it up immediately as it happens. How much was spent at the Women Conference dinner on Friday? it's been picked up. Immediately that's monitoring. And we're not waiting just to evaluate when it's a lost cause. She also said the collaboration between the Bureau and Secretariat and referred to Rule 17A, and with that, she was emphatic that the Bureau is responsible for PAP and no any other organization or person. In this case, the President and his Vice. We must apply the rules. Dr. Gayo, finally, he also said as the Chair, Vice President in charge of Finance, he is not consulted, receives no report from Finance. He was concerned of the 14-page document where 250,000 was paid. Things must be in order. But the President, Vice President Gayo, the way I see it, as long as you are not breaking any laws, take charge, demand. It brings me to one important issue. We also need to look at operational manuals. There doesn't seem to be operational manual to state the process of procurement. Who raises the voucher? At what stage is it approved? Who makes the final approval? So we need to get operational manuals in place for all the departments, what they need to do. Honorable members who contributed and honorable members who are present, I thank you, and I thank the President, Chief Charumbira, and I thank the Vice President, Dr. Gayo. Thank you very much. I seek your indulgence to propose and second the CAPA report. Thank you. To propose and second. I therefore would like...
Thank you, Mr. President. I made a suggestion, and I thought that he was going to include that looking at the time that we are about to close this session, the next session will be in March. This plenary should give the authority to the Bureau, together with our regional caucus heads, to go ahead and finish the recruitment before the end of the year, so that when we come in March, they report. So I want you to add that to your motion so that when you move, then we approve them together. Thank you very much.
Well noted, Honorable Muntaka. Honorable members, Mr. President, the Vice President, I wish to propose that this CAPA report, together with the powers to give the PAP Bureau powers to recruit all the vacant position, is done as soon as possible. I thank you. I propose. I seek a seconder.
Amendments.
Honorable.
I think for better statement, you need to put notwithstanding the rule of procedure of Pan-African Parliament, which requires the approval of the plenary. So we need to put that notwithstanding.
Yeah. Yes, it adds, the final thing is the same thing, but Honorable Muntaka.
Yes, thanks, Honorable President, and thanks, Honorable Felix has done the amendment. I therefore second the motion ably moved by the Chair of CAPA as amended by Felix. I second it for the consideration of the House.
That's good. That's parliamentary.
Seconds the proposals made with amendment, Mr. President.
Yeah, for clarity, notwithstanding the rules of Parliament, the rules of procedure of Pan-African Parliament, which state that the employment of a clerk and deputy clerk shall be endorsed by the plenary of Pan-African Parliament. The plenary hereby mandates the Bureau working with other structures, I want to put it like that, within the PAP, to proceed and finalize the recruitment of clerk, deputy clerk, and other staff of the PAP. and report in March. No, but there's a technicality there. When we recruit and appoint, and then report in March. So the appoint should be there. Thank you. To appoint means by the time you come, there will be a clerk seated and having signed a contract. Thank you very much.
Proposed by Mount Sampa as stated by the President
and seconded by
Honorable Muntaka. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, members.
We can now move to the budget presentation by the chair of the Monetary and Finance Committee, Honorable Muntaka. Sorry, I need to come to here. Is it okay? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I know we are exhausted, but fortunately, most of the issues between finance and audit, there's a very thin line. So what I'll try to do, since all of us are holding the document, is to try as much as possible to summarize the report as much as possible, hoping that the full report will be taken as fully read once I just pick salient points. Mr. President, let me start by thanking the Secretariat and my colleagues on the Monetary and Financial Affairs for the support in sitting to look through all these budgets and then the executions and reporting. Colleagues, you notice that we are reporting on the budget execution for 2021, but we don't have the budget execution for 2022 because the year has not ended. And then we are presenting the budget for 2023 because AUC has taken the lead to even approve it long before now. So now if you look at the budget preparation, the total for 2021, the total amount approved was 11,887,700 compared to 16,408,177 US dollars in 2020. The reduction was due to austerity measures, implementation of AU Golden Rule, and the budget ceiling approach set up by policy organs. The table below, which is the first table that you have under the budget appropriation, clearly shows how these figures play out. Mr. President, the execution for 2021 was not good at all. And Mr. President, as you all will be very much aware, because of the COVID pandemic, we couldn't carry out most of our activities as expected. So you will see that the budget execution for 2021 was just about 73%. Now I want to take this opportunity to make a small correction. If you look at the table under operational budget execution 2021, when you look at the specific items of MP statutory activities plus others, you will see that the revised budget was $1,505,100. Then you see budget execution for this year ended 31st December 2021 is $850,693 US dollars. Now when you look at the budget balance, you have 1 million that is written there. It's wrong. It's a typo. The actual balance is 714,407 US dollars. So 714,407. That's what will give you the percentage execution of 54 if you do the calculations. So Mr. President, if you go to the program budget execution, here again, because of the COVID, an unfortunate incident that happened in the chamber that led to the suspension of the Pan-African Parliament, here the program budget execution was only 24% because there were no plenary, there were no community activities. Virtually a lot of things didn't happen. So that explains that phenomenon. Now when you go under committee observation on the budget execution overall, you will see that the overall budget execution rate for 2021 is 68%. The execution rate for the operational budget, which I mentioned earlier, was 73%, and for the program, 24%. The execution rate is low because major program activities, as I mentioned earlier, could not take place because of the incidents that happened in the chamber coupled with COVID. In summary, for the 2021, the committee took note of the budget execution for 2021 and observed that under the program budget, more activity will have been undertaken to ensure higher execution rate. Otherwise, the PAP runs the risk of reducing unutilized funds under the European Commission Africa Governance Architecture Funding Program. Colleagues, to come to the budget of 2023, you will see that we were told that the budget was approved based on the ceiling of the 2020, the 3-year period, that's 2019 all the way to 2021. And the sad thing here is that you will see some deliberateness. Whereas they acknowledge that COVID affected us throughout 2020, 2021, because of the challenges that we had, we couldn't even sit, yet they used this poor execution rate as a benchmark to implement the budget for 2023. And therefore, you will see that the values there or the figures there are nothing much to write home about. You will see this results in the PAP 2023 budget being reduced to $11,925,224 from the 11. Okay, so that's about 2 million, and then 2,111,273 for program budget, and then 9,813,951 for the operational budget. That's the two. When you put them together, is what gives you the 11. Let me emphatically say, the Committee on Monetary and Financial Affairs does not participate in the preparation of this 2023 budget, because this was done in June in Nairobi 2022, and you acknowledge that we couldn't resume our activities as PAP until August. By the time we came in August, they had already done this meeting, so the committee could not participate. This narrative report discusses the individual budget line and provides the assumptions that were used in determining the initial budget amount and the justification for the activity. The narrative below is supported by the budget tables. So you look at those tables, then you see how they really allocated the amount. Now, when you go to the operational budget for 2022 was about 10.6 million, and the approved operational budget for 2023, even when they now know that we are now fully in session, they further reduced the operational budget from the 10.6 to about 9.8. That's a decrease of about 8% without any basis for the reduction. Justification of the difference budget category that form the operational budget is below. So you will see what is below. Here again, just as the CAPA report indicated, our inability to quickly fill in the vacancies, because if we were supposed to have about 74 staff, and out of that, about 22 are vacant, obviously their salary and emolument allowances will always be sitting. And when the AUC or PRC are going through the budget, they know that these are staff that we needed to recruit, but they still use it against us to say that, oh, there's this money you've not used, so therefore it's like the money you were given last year, you don't really have the use for it. I'm happy that just a moment ago we have approved that the Bureau should go ahead and recruit the staff by the end of this year and report to us in March. I'm sure this is going to help us close these challenges and the gap in our budgeting. Colleagues, if we go to the mission and hospitality, that's 2.22. The budget category for mission and hospitality is made up of three subcategories, being missions of members of the Bureau, missions of parliamentarians, and the missions of staff of the Secretariat, and then hospitality. It is shocking to know that in 2023, the PURC decided to just say we shouldn't carry out any mission because they allocated zero amount to it. This will mean that in 2023, we could not have, the Bureau itself could not even embark on any travels, not alone we, the members of Parliament, better still, not to talk about the staff. There cannot be any hospitality. I mean, the President cannot even host any special gathering because all those have been scored zero. Now, when you go to the Bureau and MP's cost, which is the table is there below there, you will see one of the most significant things that I want to draw your attention to is MP medical cost. They have decided that in 2023, they were going to give us not $1 to take care of that. What it means is that in 2023, may God forbid, if we are in this chamber and any of us collapse, the only way we can help the person is maybe to contribute money to support that person. Because PRC had decided that we don't deserve, whilst we are here, that our health do not matter. And they are not ready to make any provision, even $1 for any of the MP's medical costs. And we know, staying here for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we don't own our life. There can be challenges, you can go and eat something and you could have some challenge. So sometimes these are allocated in case of emergency. We used to have insurance, that has been cancelled. Now even this small allocation, they've gone ahead to cancel it just to leave zero amount. This is a very serious situation, and definitely as a Parliament we need to put our heads together to see what we can do together. Now when you look at another major area that I think is of importance that I need to mention to you is if you go to the MP statutory activities, that is 2.28. The table below shows the analysis of the budget line under MP statutory activities. The Parliament hosts 2 statutory sessions and 2 statutory committee sittings per year. The preparation of the meeting's budget covers the cost of translation, interpretation for the routine activities of the Parliament. The approved budget for this category is about $1.7 million US, a decrease of about 8% on top of the 2022 budget. Significant reduction was made on the parliamentary session budget, which was reduced by 14%. Now, if you look at the table, you will notice that this session that we are holding, in 2023, the amount allocated is reduced. I don't know what they mean, that maybe we should reduce the 14 days, average days of sitting, or the 2 weeks, to maybe 10 days, or to 9 days. I don't understand why they have to cut that, because if you are not even going to add, because of maybe cost of inputs may be going up, why will they cut that budget? If you look at committee meetings, already this is an area where all of us see the challenge. Committees, you want to embark on activities, there are no budget allocation, yet they still move ahead to cut that budget. Now, if you look at preparation for meetings and translation and interpreters, those who do this interpretation for us. Now, if you cut that, I don't understand what they mean. Are they saying that in sitting, we should reduce the number of hours that we sit, or the number of activities that we carry? Because for interpretation, you have to pay for it. Why will they cut that budget? Yet it is cut. Then the bureau meetings, and then AU activities, they try to score zero for us. That means we as PAP, even though we are an organ of the AU, if AU is carrying any activity, even our president should not attend. Because they gave us zero, meaning that we shouldn't participate in any AU activity. This is really, abnormality. Now, when you take the table 2.29, which talks about the capital expenditure, they decided that for vehicles, for furniture and fittings, for office equipment, for information technology material and accessories, we shouldn't do anything. So may God forbid, If for any reason any of these chairs get broken down, we can't replace it. In the office of the president, even if a mirror drops and it cracks, you can't replace it. If a cap breaks, you can't replace it. Nothing can be done. I don't think this is fair. And I want to take this opportunity, Mr. President, to urge each and every one of us, as we are preparing to go home, let's try to identify who is representing our country on the PRC. Let me go home as Ghanaian, try to find out from my foreign minister, who have you put there to represent Ghana on the PRC, so that I get to talk to that person directly. If all of us will do that, I'm sure when we go for supplementary budget, they will listen to us better. But if we don't do this and we leave it to the Bureau, I'm sure individually in our various countries, they will have great respect for us. But when we come to PAP, they see the Bureau, I don't know whether as enemy or as people they hate, they don't want to listen to them. Because if we don't have an improvement on this budget for 2023, in the supplementary for 2023, we all can be rest assured that our activities next year is going to be heavily challenged. Mr. President, the PAP has had no budget for capital expenditure, as I've just shown. I will just go straight to say, for program activities for the committees, in fact, they decided to score 0. Had it not been the European Union program, which is the African Governance Architecture program, where there's some funding for us, and graciously for 2023, the approved program budget for 2023 is 2.1 million, which is about 73.7% higher than the 2022 budget of 1.2. That's a grant from the European Union, see the need to increase the budget for our activity. But our own PRC gave us 0 for program activity. And now I want to urge that our committees should do well so that these programs, we have at least this about 2.1 million. Let's bring out our program activity, implement, and let's try to exhaust this fully to even warrant that next in the 2024 budget we may be able to get bigger amount from the European Union. Mr. President, the committee observed the following: that honorable members should present their PAP 2023 budget for you to examine and take note. 2, secondly, the annual approved budget is insufficient to carry out any meaningful activity of the committees. The 2023 PAP budget was based on the 2022 budget, and which was firstly a COVID budget, and secondly, due to the PAP closure, funds were not allocated for the committee activity. In 2023, the same scenario was used when approving the PAP budget. In effect, committees have no working capital. 3, Mr. President, we would like to impress upon the Bureau to immediately put in place mechanism through which we can engage the African Union Commission to provide supplementary budget to cater for the work of the committees, and to further put in place mechanism through which committees can equally and independently plan and execute their activities albeit with the limited funds. 4, the Committee on Monetary and Financial Affairs reiterates its call to this House on the need for it to be involved in the PAP and AUC budgetary processes from inception to approval. We reiterate our call to the Bureau to include the members on the Finance and Monetary Affairs Committee in the delegation to the AU Summit, as well as the financial meetings that have implication on PAP. 5, Committee on Monetary and Financial Affairs once again appeals to the committees to submit their programs for their activities timeously to enable it incorporate their needs in the preparation of the budget for 2024, which will soon begin. These are our recommendations, Mr. President. The Committee on Monetary and Financial Affairs further recommends to the Bureau to 1, allocate funds to each committee effectively January 2023 to enable each committee execute its work plan. Mr. President, what we mean here is that the situation where even committees do not know how much is being allocated them, even if it is 50,000, let's say for you, after presentation of your program of work, you are allocated 50,000, and let the chair be working towards exhausting the 50,000, instead of a situation where nobody knows how much is allocated each committee. I'm sure this will be one catalyst that will force the committee to carry out more activities so that we'll be able to improve our execution rate. Mr. President, 2, in accordance with Rule 82A1 and 2 of the Rules of Procedure, reminds the Bureau to submit to the Committee on Monetary and Financial Affairs preliminary budget estimate for the preparation of PAP Budget 2024. We are appealing to you to get your Secretariat to quickly try and get us all the necessary documentation so that we'll be able to prepare ourselves for the next budget hearing. Mr. President, 3, even though these are not on your sheet, they are additions. The Committee on Monetary and Financial Affairs be allowed to monitor budget execution monthly. One of the things that we realize is that, like our colleagues from the Audit Committee rightly said, if we can keep a close eye on the Accounts Department and the Finance Department, what they are doing month by month, we'll be able to see which areas are we not performing so that we can put pressure. If monies are allocated, there are budget lines, and they are not being used, we don't have to wait until it is November when it is just 1 month more before we start complaining. But if we can monitor month by month as Finance Committee, we'll be able to see which areas are not doing well so that we can prompt the Bureau to get those sections to also speed up and improve the work that they are doing. 4, all of us, I've said this, but I'm just adding to the recommendation, all of us should look for our country's reps on the PRC. They need to be talked to before the supplementary budget and then the budget for 2024. Mr. President, I beg to move accordingly. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Muntaka, Finance. This is a report to take note. The budget was already approved and implemented, and this is 2023. We only remain with less than 2 months to come to the end, but this is for information. In fact, the 2024 one was also already approved. 24 not yet. But it is critical that we submit our input by March. So when we meet in March, we have to ensure that we approve a budget. Because the AU by April, May, by the time we have a session in May, they would have already gone through critical submissions. So it's just for noting, if you like, unless there is really a burning issue on this matter. Honorable Patrick.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. The good thing, Mr. President, you informed us that there is a meeting soon with the PRC. We wish you good deliberations. Otherwise, from the pain under which the chair presented our finances here, we will pass a resolution here that the PRC is frustrating the PAP. If out of your meeting with them, we do not see results, when we come back here in March or any time, we shall pass that resolution so that the people of Africa get to know that there is an agency of AU that does not want the parliament to function properly. So I had to make that because I saw how the chairperson of finance is trying to show how this institution may not be able to function properly come next year because the PRC is looking at it as, I think, as a neighbor's child under the circumstances. So, Mr. President, when you meet them, pass on our information that we are not happy in the way they are handling matters to do with the PAP finances. Mr. President, honestly, if there was COVID the other year, how do you expect the same institution to operate on the same budget that they operated on under COVID, if you're serious? So, Mr. President, I want to thank you because you've also indicated that by March we will have made our contribution towards the 2024 budget. Otherwise, I am so worried that this institution called the PRC might not be so much interested in this organization called the Pan-African Parliament. Thank you very much.
Indeed, we made our case in Lusaka to foreign ministers. What the finance committee chair said to the PRC, we showed them that we are back to work, but the coffers are empty. The PRC said, give them money. Those are the foreign ministers. They even put in their resolution our previous request of a retreat. The retreat is one of the decisions of the PRC, the Executive Council, in July. But we keep pushing and writing, when are we holding that retreat? Because the retreat will unpack issues. They will unlock the jinx with PAP. They will understand better why we need medical aid. That's an opportunity to say, look, why medical aid and why it existed from 2004. What was the reason? And the issue of allowances, there's an opportunity for us to say, look, anywhere in the world, a member of parliament is paid a sitting allowance. Anywhere in the world is paid a sitting allowance. But PAP, you have no salary, you have no sitting allowance, you have no any other allowance. These have existed before, but they took them out. Talk to your PRC member, which is what Honorable Muntaka, please, let's cry here, but who is causing us to cry? It is your foreign minister in your country, it is your ambassador who is in Addis, who is denying us medical aid. So we want to implore on any individual of you of the delegations, our delegations, when you go back, your delegation should go and see your foreign minister. And they say, why are we being treated like this? The foreign minister say, oh no, we don't know. Say, but no, ask the ambassador, your ambassador who is in Addis Ababa. That's what they are doing to us. Let's start conversations with our foreign minister so that by the time we get to January and February is critical because the Executive Council will be meeting, the foreign ministers will be meeting. They are the ones who can sit in February and say, we are rescinding the decision on PAP. Allow PAP to have allowances, allow PAP to have medical aid, allow PAP to have this and this. So February is key. Your foreign minister will leave your country to go to Addis. Make sure by end of year or by January you have met as a delegation your foreign minister. Before he goes in February to Addis Ababa. If it were possible, when you meet them, please also advise us. It's a strategic move. It helps us to know that Mauritius delegation have spoken to their foreign minister. Their minister now understands and is going to support us. They've spoken to their ambassador. So in terms of strategy, then we know where are the hard areas and the soft areas. Everyone, please approach your foreign minister and also even call your ambassador in Addis. They are the key people. It's nothing to do with the heads of state. Heads of state do not determine our conditions of service. It's the foreign ministers. So I'm really repeating because that's the real make and breakthrough issue. It's a make and break. Talk to you in Côte d'Ivoire, professor. Côte d'Ivoire, the professor is there. The professor Côte d'Ivoire, approach your foreign minister in Côte d'Ivoire. But Senegal, unfortunately, is not here because they are the ones chairing the PRC up to February. And for the retreat, we are pushing him. We need that retreat. For the retreat, we are trying to bring them, the ambassadors here to PAP. If they agree, they may say come to Addis. But we thought they would come here, see this infrastructure, the way it is, offices. And then for Africa to neglect all this. So we wanted to bring them here. Who is attending? Of course, the whole bureau is attending. All the caucus chairpersons will attend. And then a number of you, each caucus will pick, if we say Addis, we'll see how much you should spend, but I can assure you it is beyond the regional caucus chairpersons. There will be people from your countries, from a number of countries that would invite. If it were possible, maybe 20, 25 of us at the retreats to make sure that we present or we push our issues. So I don't know who, but some of you will be there to speak on behalf of Pan-African Parliament. So on this note, we adopt the report. Thank you. Have you? It's adopted. Lastly, we just have some notices. Please bear with us. And before the notices, I'm going to say, I think those people who are sacrificing to sit until this time in the last week of session, those people are the most highly committed to Pan-African Parliament. If you are still with this chamber up to now, and have any interest in that, I won't do it today, but I will start tomorrow. I will start tomorrow. Tomorrow, we want the official record, that record of tomorrow of who is here in the morning and the end of day until we finish. We need that as a special record of commitment. Those that are very committed. And we need to find a way of thanking them as we go, because they are very committed. They make PAP move. Because if you do not come, all of you would close and go home. The fact that you are here, we are still debating. So please move us until Friday, and then of course the bureaucracy members until Sunday. And I want to emphasize, if you are a chairman of a committee, and you know that your attention is divided too much, please, I know it's difficult. Some have deaths in their families, they have to go back. But chairpersons or bureau members of caucuses, bureau members of bureaucracies, please, as much as possible, you are always the last to leave when everybody, after the planning meeting, to make sure PAP succeeds. Yeah, they had me hear from the crack. There are 3 motions, not to be debated, that's notices of motions. The first one will be moved by Honorable Pemima Jodina.
Thank you very much, Honorable President, this afternoon, Vice President, honorable members. Mr. President, I hereby, in terms of Rule 61, give the following notice of motion: that the House notes that one of the world's longest and deadliest ongoing barbaric conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo provinces of North Kivu, South Kivu, and Ituri has resulted in more than 100,000 people fleeing their homes and dozens being killed during the fight between Congolese soldiers and various rebel groups, which include M23 rebels, remnants of the Lord Resistance Army, Tabara militia, and allied democratic forces who are linked to ISIS. Noting with grave concern that the rebel attacks in the Democratic Republic of Congo has had a devastating effect not only on the ordinary citizens of the DRC, but it has a profound, lasting negative effect to the country, the southern region, East African region, Central Africa region, and the African continent as a whole. Further noting that the ongoing decades conflict in the DRC has forced the citizens of this beautiful and mineral-rich sister country to be beggars and destitute in the neighboring countries and seek refuge in other parts of the continent, including the Southern Africa and other neighboring regions. Deeply concerned that the ongoing conflict in the DRC has not only displaced thousands of citizens, but it has undermined any social and economic activities and led to gross human rights violation in the country. Concerned that biggest victims of the ongoing violent and barbaric attacks in DRC are innocent children, women, elderly, and persons with disabilities. Further deeply concerned that the effects of the conflicts are not restricted to DRC Congo, but are also souring diplomatic relations between Rwanda and DRC, which accuses its neighbor of backing the M23 rebels, and it has resulted in DRC expelling the Rwandan ambassador last week. Noting that one of the objectives behind the formation of the OAU on the 25th of May 1963 was to ensure the cooperation of African states in defense and security and respect for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of each state.
Honorable, just as well, at this stage, what you have read is enough, because you are simply moving a notice.
I hereby move.
You are not, yes, just like that. A motion calling for the immediate end of the DRC conflict.
Yes,
then tomorrow you'll be given on whatever day. Then you go through all this and put more substance.
Yes.
So just as well, you've actually moved.
I move this motion, Honorable President.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seconded by who? Sorry? Oh, Honorable Mbo.
Yeah, seconded by Honorable Mbo from the Gambia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next one is a motion on Ethiopia. The ceasefire, celebrating the ceasefire. The next motion. Who is moving that one on Ethiopia? Okay, Honorable Felix.
Mr. President, I'm moving this oral notice of motion under our rules of procedure 57, which requires a member to move a motion and also requires the President, where necessary, to allow the motion to be debated at his own discretion. I therefore move that the notice of motion that we congratulate the Federal Republic of Ethiopia and the Tigray People's Liberation Front on signing of the peace agreement. I therefore move.
Seconder, is that Honorable Domai?
Here.
Is it? Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
Honorable Domai.
Yeah, this is.
I am not necessarily.
This is Domai Garfana.
Look one side. Okay, Honorable Domai. Thank you, seconded.
Thank you for the chance.
Thank you, seconded, Honorable Domai. You have seconded. The third motion will be moved by Honorable Mbo. Is it? I'm wrong? You gave her? Honorable Mbo. You have no motion to move.
Mbo was second.
Sorry? Well,
I just seconded the
motion.
motion.
A motion to move. Okay, if he doesn't have, it's okay. Don't worry. He is confused. Are you settled now?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. This is also another notice for a resolution calling for the immediate lifting of unilateral economic sanctions imposed on Zimbabwean government by the United States of America, United Kingdom, and the European Union. So this is also another notice that we are giving for this particular motion.
Thank you, Seconder. Honorable Kasingo. Thank you.
I hereby second the motion.
Thank you. Right. Of the rules, I'll allow this debate on these three motions at 9 tomorrow. You have another one. Thank you. Go ahead.
Mr. President, as per our rule 57, oral notice of motion, I want to bring to your attention of you, Mr. President, and the House, that I intend to move a motion on Uganda, urging this House to support Uganda to extract its oil and petroleum products without any undue influence or interruptions from other bodies like EU.
The European Union. The EU. You explain, that were clear.
The European Parliament passed a motion stopping Uganda and other African countries from extracting fossil fuel and not allowing any government or any country in Africa to engage in the extraction of fossil fuel. And that is interference and dictating on Africa what to extract and what not to extract. And therefore, I intend to move that motion tomorrow, Mr. President.
Thank you. The Uganda has discovered oil, but the European Union is saying your pipeline from Uganda will pass through a number of countries, and I think through Tanzania. And by so doing, you'll be destroying the environment, so stop mining. Anyway, I just wanted to explain. Seconder, I can see a number of hands. You have because I know her name starts Matt. Allowed.
Thank you, President.
Thank you. You are seconding.
I stand to second.
Yes, thank you. You have seconded. Thank you. So, the one by Honorable Felix, because it's oral, you have to reduce it to writing and hand it over to the President tomorrow morning by 9:15. It's okay. Yes. Let me explain about tomorrow. We start at 9 and we start with these motions. In terms of the rules, a motion is only given 1 hour and it closed. We may not even do 1 hour. We may do 30 minutes for each motion to pass. What we need are the resolution at the end of the day. What is the resolution on that motion? So each motion will have a prayer, which what resolution do you want? That is very important. And we can debate that, all of them in 1 hour or slightly more. Tomorrow we may have, although there's a serious confirmation, His Excellency, former President Olusegun Obasanjo, he was supposed to have addressed us in August and then Monday, but he was busy with the talks, Ethiopian talks. He was the chief negotiator. he couldn't attend. So he said, I'm sorry, can I come tomorrow to give his wisdom on how they negotiated Ethiopia Tigris and got an agreement, and his views about other issues on the continent, just to share with him. We don't envisage debate after his presentation, but I'll give a speech before him, and I'll try to touch all issues. But if you think there is a critical issue that we should not leave out, you can, in whatever way, make it available to the president by when we come in at 9 o'clock, so that we ask him to respond to some of those issues. So it's likely to come either by 10 or so, but we would have debated our motions between 9 and 10, and then we continue with the rest of the business. I think, Mr. Clerk, any announcements? Any announcements?
Thank you, Mr. President. I think that we have exhausted all the issues. Thank you very much. I don't think there's anything further.
Please. Thank you very
Mr.
much.
President, please.
Yes, Honorable Ali.
Muito obrigado, Sr. Presidente.
Thank you, Chair. About the motions, we continue to discuss here terrorism. Mozambique had proposed and moved someone want to condemn the terrorist activities that were occurring in our country. At that time, this was gone. I would wonder if tomorrow you could find some space for further discussion of this motion. Thank you.
Move and say you propose to move a motion on the terrorism or condemning terrorism in Mozambique. Yeah, move properly so that we second it. Stand up and move that motion.
Muito obrigado.
Thank you. So we would like to make it clear that in the Southern Africa area, we have been victims of terrorism, particularly in Mozambique, in Cabo Delgado region. It's an attack to our region, and we feel that this parliament should have a very strong condemnation of this, and we should therefore approve a motion again, and to also to beg for the support to support Mozambique in its fight against terrorism, because this is in the interest of the region. Thank you.
It is a form of moving a motion. So he has moved. Who seconds? Professor Matole.
Second that and confirm that is a threat against all of us in the sub-region, in the SADC.
Thank you. Because you have done it orally in terms of the rules, you have not given me anything written. You have to submit that motion in writing before we come into the chamber by 9 tomorrow morning. Yeah, and then put resolutions that you want us to, in the condemning, what sort of resolution condemning. Thank you very much for your commitment. We meet tomorrow 9 a.m. sharp in this chamber tomorrow.